Hello everyone and welcome to episode 9 of the Dunkelgrün podcast. This is a podcast about knitting, spinning, dyeing and many other textile crafts and fiber arts. My name is Anna, I'm coming to you from Zurich in Switzerland and today is Wednesday, July 12th. You can find me on Instagram as dunkelgrün and since recently also on Ravelry as dunkelgrün. We also have a Ravelry group, the Dunkelgrün group, where you can find knit-alongs, giveaways and a lot of fun chatter as well as questions and answers about this podcast. Detailed show notes with information about everything that I mention here on the podcast you can find at dunkelgrun.com and check the info box below this video. There you will find links to all these places that I have just mentioned. Welcome and thank you for tuning in today. It means a lot to me that you are choosing to watch my podcast because I know there are so many great podcasts out there, so thank you very much for spending your time with me today. It has been just a little bit more than 2 weeks since my last episode, and as you can see behind me, the rainbow of natural dyes is complete. All these yarns were dyed with natural dyes, and today I'm going to focus on this part here, on the blues and greens, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I dyed with indigo and onion skins. If you're interested in the reddish pink section over here, this part I have talked about in the previous episode, episode 8. So before we get into natural dyeing, I would like to talk a little bit about my knitting projects as usual, and also let's start with our knit-along because I have some exciting news there. Célèste of the Yarn to Table podcast and myself are co-hosting the summergarmentKAL, where we are encouraging people to knit summer garments, which can be sleeveless tops, short sleeve tops, knits out of cotton, knits out of hemp, linen, anything that you would typically wear during the summer months. And the cast on date for this knit along was May 1st, and you have time all the way through August 31st to finish your garment. So there is still some time to make something. And of course there will be prizes. And this week I am very happy to be able to show you some prize donations. I will show you the prizes now in the chronological order in which I have received them, and for each of the prizes I will pick a winner. There is no first or second or whatever prize, it's just each of them is a first prize. The lovely Justyna, who is jajuska on Ravelry, has donated a prize for the summergarmentKAL, and this is it. It's a wonderful rainbow yarn. And this is Lithuanian yarn and it's called Midara wool chess, and it is distributed by a Polish yarn shop. That's the label that it has here. And this yarn shop is called, and now all my Polish friends out there are going to get cramps, Włóczki Warmii. So I said it. It is a fingering weight yarn, 100 grams and 350 meters. It's 100% wool and it was produced, as I said before, in Lithuania. It is a little more rustic, but still I wouldn't call it scratchy. I think I could wear it, maybe not. I'm not sure if I could wear it at my neck or not, but I think this gradient would work perfectly for a shawl or something else for autumn. Thank you so much, Justyna, for sending me this beautiful yarn and for being so kind and sharing it with our community. The next prize has been sent to me by Mania. This is a Swiss indie dyer business. They are using beautiful bases, many Swiss yarns they have in stock, and actually they have quite a variety of different bases and beautiful colorways. And all these yarns are hand dyed by Babette Ayman, and you can find them at mania.com. I will include a link in the show notes. And this is the prize that they have donated. It is a wonderful speckle yarn, so this is Merino Sport, and it has about 100 grams and 300 meters, and the colorway is called Confetti. Look at this awesome color variety here. It fits very well also with the other yarn and with my background today. I guess today's theme is rainbow. We have pretty much all the colors of the rainbow in this yarn, except for green maybe. There is no green, I think. Teals, oranges, yellows, pinks, fuchsia, and everything on this light base that looks a bit like tea color, I would say. And this is their logo, Mania. So one lucky winner of our KAL is going to win this prize. Thank you so much, Babette, for sending me this prize. It is a pleasure, and I really hope that I can visit your yarn store in Bern soon and maybe talk a little bit about the podcast. Next, I would like to quickly mention a podcast that I have been watching, a new to me podcast, and this is Tommi with Squirrel Productions. I have just recently discovered that she has a podcast, even though I have been following her on Instagram already for a while. I don't know what's happening. I think on Instagram I only see half of the posts that people are posting. It's just selects what it shows to me. So I didn't know she had a podcast, but now I do, and I am very glad because she is super refreshing to watch. She knits very beautiful things and she talks about interesting details on her knitting, and she has a lot of enthusiasm, and you can really see that she loves what she's doing, and this is infectious, or like makes me want to knit more and the same things as she knits. So go and check out Tommi of the Squirrel Productions if you don't know her already. This week I have not only one, I have actually two finished projects to share with you. The first one is one that you have already seen on the needles last week, and that's my pair of socks. These are now finished. They are knit out of my hand-dyed yarn, the glowstone colorway. This is my classic sock base, and I did a short row heel, let's say German short row heel, in a contrasting yarn. This is just Lang yarns. I will link the information about the yarns in the show notes. And here we have a 1x1 ribbed cuff. And yeah, oh yeah, I used the reinforcement thread for the heel as well. I am not so sure if it was the right color choice, this gray as the contrasting color, because I really love this colorway. I think it's amazing, but I think it would have been better to have a little darker gray to make the colorway pop even more. I don't know, but I like them. I think they're really nice, and it was my first time that I made a pair of socks out of this base, and I'm a huge fan of the stitch definition of this yarn. It's a little bit puffier than other sock yarns that I have knit with and that you get from other indie dyers, I guess, and I think it feels really nice and sturdy, and it was also really nice to knit with it, not splitty, just creating beautiful stitches. You're like looking down on your knitting and think, yeah, this is how it should be. My second finished project is something that I have cast on right away after I have finished these socks, and I have finished it already. This is the Dotted Rays by Stephen West. It is a very interesting construction. It uses these typical West knits shortcut rows, and I believe this was his first shawl that used these shortcut rows, and I put this in my queue already in 2014, 3 years ago, because when it came out I immediately fell in love with it, but I have never knit it. And then the pattern was actually gifted to me by a lovely person, Alexa. I don't know if she's watching this, I don't think so. She got some fiber from me for spinning a couple of years ago in 2014, and then she was so kind and sent me this pattern, and since then I had it in my library, and I never made it. It was always on the list, but I never made it, and now finally I just started. So after he published this shawl, there were of course the famous Exploration Station and the Doodler that also used this short row construction, but I think I like this one best of the designs because it's just simply these shortcut rows, and then it finishes with an I-cord bind off. And also here along the edges you have this I-cord, and I have been able to hide some of the yarns in here, which is pretty cool. So I didn't have enough yarn to make size small of this shawl, so I had to stop one stripe earlier. The next color that I would have had to use would have been blue, but I waited, and I also weighed the yarns in the stripes before and after, and I realized that this would have not been enough anymore to knit a full stripe. So that's why I stopped one row shorter, but it's no problem at all. I think the shawl is big enough for me, and I can just wrap it around once. And actually that's the size that I like for my shawls, like this. So the yarns that I used for this is yarn from Portugal. It's a 100% merino yarn, and it's called Amélia. These here are my leftovers. You can see of the brown one I still have plenty left, and of the others it's just a little bit of each. This here is the tag. It is a fingering weight yarn with 50 grams and 190 meters per ball. It comes directly in a cake, so it's ready to knit. You don't need to reskein it or anything. And I bought this yarn when I was in Porto in Portugal in May. And you can actually get the yarn also online in their online shop, and they ship internationally. And if you're interested in a rustic single ply tweedy yarn that is really nice to work with and gives a really nice result, I would absolutely recommend it to you. One thing that is interesting about this yarn is that it has the spinning oil still in it. So if you look at this yarn here, maybe in the light color you can see the texture best. It looks a bit compressed, right? It is not airy, it is not fluffy, and it is also a bit hard. And it says also on the ravelry page of the yarn that you should scour it twice after you finish your project. And I did that. I scoured it actually more than twice. First I used dish detergent to wash it to really remove all the fats. And afterwards I used some fiber wash and also some fiber conditioner, and the yarn has bloomed up substantially. It's amazing. I also tried it with a thread. I think I don't have it here anymore to show you, unfortunately. I tried to take a piece of yarn and wash it and compared it to how it looked like before it was washed, and what happened was that it broke after washing. You could not really knit with it anymore. It was just falling apart, because I think this is a woolen spun single, and they let the spinning oil in the yarn so that you are able to knit with it, and then afterwards when you wash it, it goes out and you get this really airy, fluffy yarn. I think that's really cool and really special, and I love the combination of colors, and I think it's just a perfect match, this yarn and this shawl. It was meant to be. Oh yeah, and I used the colorways that I used in here are just numbers, and I have linked them in the show notes, and you can find them also on my Ravelry project page. Now let's move on to what is currently on my needles and to knitting in progress. I have, after I was not successful with my previous attempt at knitting a summer top for our summer garment KAL, I have started something new, and this is the Morning Mist top by Annie Rowden, or Annie Claire, and it is just wonderful. This is how far I've got so far. So this is a DK weight yarn. This is my own yarn, the dunkelgrün organic merino DK. The lighter color I have called silvretta, and the darker color is peppermint mouse. So how this sweater has actually quite an interesting construction. First you knit the rectangular lace panel, and you cast on down here in the middle, and knit in this direction. And then you pick up the cast on stitches and knit in this direction so that it creates this symmetry. And then afterwards you block the lace panel and then you pick up stitches from it here at the top to knit the shoulder, and then you pick up stitches on the other side to knit the other shoulder, and then you cast on stitches in between and join the shoulders, knit down a little bit, and then you join it in the round. Actually, it's really easy, this pattern, and it's also quite well written. And in the end, there is no real shaping involved, it's all just rectangles. So what have I changed in this pattern? You might maybe see, if you know the original pattern, that this is not the original lace that the pattern describes. The lace in the pattern is worked on the front and on the back. I will insert a picture here so that you can see how the original lace looks like. And I swatched like that, but I was not really happy with it. So here was my swatch where I work the lace on the front and on the back. And then here I have a teeny tiny little swatch where I worked the lace only on the front. So what I did actually is I translated these wrong side lace rows into right side lace rows and added purl rows in between. That's all I did. I still kept this trellis shape of the original pattern, and I have to say I really like it much more. Of course I had to do less repeats of the lace in total, but I did exactly the same number of rows that Annie describes in her pattern, and I think I like that lace a lot. I think I like it more than the one in the pattern, but that's always a question of taste, isn't it? So the colors I think work out really well. This peppermint mouse is just really cool. It's a mix of, maybe like this, then it does not get blown out. It's a mix of grey and peppermint green, and it's just very nice. And the other one is also a very light faint glacier green. And yeah, as you can see, there is no yarn hanging down from it because I have just finished the first skein of the grey, and here is my second one that I have to cake now and continue knitting. It's not so much more. I'm a bit confident that I might be able to present this as an FO next episode. I really hope so. I really hope so. Fingers crossed. So, was that it? That was it. Oh no, there was another little modification that I did at the cast on. She tells you in the pattern to do a provisional cast on, an invisible provisional cast on, and I didn't do that. I just did a long tail cast on and picked up that long tail cast on because it's not really visible on the right side anyway, and on the wrong side it just gives you this little ridge here, which looks a bit like a seam, and it does not disturb me. So I think that works out fine, and I love doing a long tail cast on. I just get a very nice and even tension there because I have a lot of practice with that cast on, and other more exotic cast ons, if I do them, they just don't look so nice because I am not experienced at doing them. And this is actually the only thing that is still on my needles that I have worked on the last 2 weeks. Those of you who have watched the podcast before know that there are some other things that I have on my needles, my blanket and another sweater also, but I have not worked on them recently, and they will make an appearance again on the podcast when I have worked on them. So another thing that I am planning to cast on soon is I have received a wonderful package in the mail, and this came from the Bijou Basin range. This here is their sticker. So this is the Bijou Basin range in Colorado in the US, and they are specialized on quality yak fibers and yarns. So they are raising yaks on their farm and spinning yarns and yarn blends, and they are also selling roving and fiber for spinning. And also they have some other luxury fibers I saw in their shop, like Kivit, Angora, Paco Vicuña, which is also something I would really like to try one day. And yeah, they have sent me this beautiful yarn, which is the Bijou Spun Himalayan Trail. quality yak fibers and yarns, and this is 75% yak down and 25% superfine merino wool. And yeah, this is quite a high yak content. I think I have never had a yarn that was such a high yak content, except for one that I have spun myself that was 100% yak. And it is looking rustic, like this, yeah, like a bit of Brooklyn tweed style, or these rustic yarns that you can make these awesome things out of that look natural and beautiful. But it is heavenly soft. It is soft like 20 micron merino. It looks really amazing, and it is very puffy because actually it is a fingering weight or fingering to sport weight yarn, but it looks like a DK when you look at it. And the reason for that is that yak is so lightweight. You cannot compare the yardages of yak yarns with the yardages of wool yarns, because it's just a completely different density of the fiber. I do actually have some yak fiber in my spinning stash, and I got that for you now to show you how yak looks like in the unspun form. You can see that this is really, really short. So when I pull out from here, there is almost, you see, this is really, really short. So it's quite difficult to spin that. And I did that once, and it's really interesting how different that is from wool, because it is so lightweight and so airy. And if you have never knit with yak, I would highly recommend you to do so. And I am going to share with you my experience with this yarn. And what I'm planning to knit with it is a shawl by Isolde Teague, and this is the Dovana shawl, which has, it's a unicolor, one color shawl with a beautiful cable and lace pattern in it. I'm gonna insert a picture here, and I believe that this will be just perfect for this yarn. So thank you very much for sending me this beautiful yarn, Bijou Basin Range. And I am looking forward to talking more about this and sharing my experience with it on the podcast. With this, we are ready to move on to spinning. As I have shown you in the previous episode, I am spinning this little braid here on my drop spindle. And even though it is Tour de Fleece and everyone is spinning and Instagram and Ravelry are full of spinning pictures, I have not been spinning so much these last 2 weeks. I don't know, it was just more of a knitting time. The weather has been a little bit rainy and I just felt more like knitting. But nevertheless, I did a little bit of progress with my BFL roving that I dyed myself a couple of years ago. And here I am currently plying some of that on my Ashford drop spindle. This is what I have plied so far. You can see it's a little bit irregular and fuzzy, but I like that. Since this is a spindle project, I have decided to also ply it on the spindle. Usually I ply on my wheel, but this time I have thought maybe I'll give it a try and ply on the spindle, which I haven't done in quite a long time. And for plying, I am winding my singles on a piece of toilet paper roll using my ball winder, and then I have the thread coming from the inside and from the outside, and I am just plying them together. Maybe I can show you how I do that. So I'm spinning the spindle in the opposite direction of how I spun the singles, and then I am just getting out some singles from the ball and letting them go together. And I have to be careful here with my hands that they don't combine already before. So I'm just like moving up the twist here with my hand like this. I hold it with one hand like this and control it. So then it's ready to be bound onto the spindle. And this is what I am doing here. I have to do a little bit more today, so I can hopefully show you some plied yarn next time. Here it is. BFL fiber, and the colors are just some muted purples, mauvey, grey. Some green is also inside, but you can't see that here now. Now I have to remove my shawl, it's getting really hot. It's still summer, even though it's a bit of a gloomy day today, but it's still summer. And the first dye, before we start with indigo, is that I used was brown onion skins. So I used 30 grams of onion skins and managed to dye 700 grams of yarn with them. I will insert a picture here to show you how that looked like. So the first two skeins that are labeled with a 1 here, they were pre-mordanted with alum. And all the other skeins, that I added the alum directly to the dye bath, so they had a direct mordant. And you can see that the first extract gave a very deep orangey yellow. The variegation that you can see on the skein is because I twisted them when I put them in the dye bath so that the dye did not evenly spread all over the skein. So the second extract was actually my favorite because it gave this really intense buttery golden yellow. I think if I would have to dream up the perfect yellow, I couldn't dream it up more perfectly than this. I think it's so beautiful, and it's not like this primary screaming color that you wouldn't want to wear. It's just beautiful. That's the only skein that I kept as a yellow skein, and also there is a second one that is hanging here behind me. All the other yellow skeins that you can see on the picture, I have overdyed with indigo to make them green. Indigo is one of the very few natural dyes that is able to produce a blue color. It occurs in many different plants all over the world, but there is one species, I think it's Indigofera tinctora, which is the one that is mainly used to extract the dye for natural dyeing, and this is from the tropical regions in Asia. You can buy the extract from this plant as a powder for natural dyeing. It is also possible to get synthetic indigo, which is a lot cheaper than the natural indigo because it was made in a lab. And this one is used very abundantly in industry, especially to dye blue jeans. The indigo dyeing process is actually quite different from most other natural dyeing processes that we use. And this is for the reason that indigo is not water soluble. So if you suspend it in water, it will not dissolve, it will just be particles all over distributed in the water. For dyeing with indigo, it is necessary to create a so-called vat, which contains reducing agents and strong bases. This leads to a chemical change in the indigo molecule, and afterwards it is not blue anymore, it is almost colorless or yellowish, and this new molecule is called indigo white. This yellow molecule is now water soluble, and this is where we can put our fibers in, and it will be soaked up by the fibers. As soon as the fibers come out of the vat, they will be yellow, but they will slowly start turning blue because the oxygen in the air is oxidizing the indigo molecule back from indigo white to indigo. And now it cannot be washed out anymore because indigo is not water soluble. So in fact, indigo does not form a chemical bond with the fiber, it is just soaked up into it and can't be washed out anymore. What it can, however, is be rubbed off, so that's why when you knit with indigo dyed yarns, you might get blue fingers, and also if you know the phenomenon of blue jeans, they are able to rub off onto other fabrics and cloth. So now let me show you how it looks like when I take the yarn out of the vat, how it turns blue. I will insert a little clip here for you to see how it looks like when the yarn is taken out of the vat. You will certainly notice that the vat in my video is completely dark and not yellow as I have just shown you in the previous illustration. And this is because oxygen from the air gets in touch with the indigo on the surface of the water and it oxidizes it, so it turns blue. That is also why you shouldn't stir around the pot like crazy, because then you work in more and more oxygen and you destroy your vat. And also you should put your dye stuff at the very bottom of the vat where it is yellow and strongly reducing so that it can soak up the dye. because the blue stuff will not be soaked up by the yarn, only the yellow stuff can be soaked up, and this will then afterwards turn blue. Now let me show you some of the yarns that I have dyed in my indigo session. It was actually quite a big session, and I was dyeing from morning to evening pretty much without a break, just a little lunch and dinner break. And so of course I have some different shades of blue, from a very dark blue to only a very aqua light shade of blue, and I think they are all just beautiful. You can see that they have a little bit of a variegation within. They are never really solid because I dip them in and take them out several times and let them turn deeper in color. And this here is the lightest one that I have. This is a sock yarn, and here is another. This is a DK, organic merino DK yarn, and it's a wonderful blue tone. And also I have made some that look a little bit like shibori, because I have twisted the skeins to resist the dye from going everywhere. I have a couple of these. And then I have tried something very crazy. I tried to do a speckle dye with indigo. And of course this is not the traditional speckle dye where you use the powder and put it on, but instead I have used the liquid fat to spot it onto the yarn to create some pretty good speckles of indigo on a more or less white base. I think that's pretty cool, and I have never seen speckle dyed indigo yarn before, so I feel very innovative with this one. Yeah, apart from many different blues, I have also dyed a lot of greens, because I use the birch leaf yarns that I have shown you in the previous episode, and also the onion skin dyed skeins that I have just shown you now, to create green. So if you over dye yellow, obviously it turns green. And there are some really beautiful shades. This was one that was dyed with birch leaves, and it's this beautiful dark petrol with also some lighter spots in between. There are some, here you can see some lighter greens inside. It looks like my background, I think, pretty much. And then I have also some lighter ones, like this one, which has still a lot of yellow in it. And I think it's just gorgeous. This is one of the onion skin dyed ones, over dyed with indigo. And here I have created a little video where you can see how I created the variegation on these skeins. So I put them in the dye bath in the twisted form, and then I take them out, open them and retwist them and put them back inside. I think you can see that here in the video how I do that. And this is the result. It's super cool. These two are the ones that were very dark, dyed with onion skins. They were actually looking the same, so they were on my picture, the first ones. And you can see this one here, I used only a very little bit of indigo to over dye and create these shades of olive, and here we still have the original orange left over, and there is also some areas where you can properly see the blue because the yarn had some white spots before it went into the dye bath. And then we also have the other one where I used more indigo, or a darker vat, and here it is just darker and more blue, but also still it has these awesome olive greens here and teals. And I think when you use plant dyes to create greens, like you use a yellow plant dye and over dyed with indigo, then the yarn has just so much variation in it. It's just amazing. I have knit a shawl out of such a yarn before, and knitting with it was just crazy. You see colors that you didn't even know exist. I have some more greens, also some that are just a little more solid and not so crazy, like this one here. This is more like a jade green, but also in here you have a wonderful variety of shades softly transitioning into each other. And you can see also some of those behind me. Yeah, I think those dyes really go very well together, and you could, for example, also combine them with the cochineal that I have shown you last time. They would make a beautiful naturally dyed pop of color in them, or even the speckled one with a solid one. I think there are plenty of possibilities to create awesome knitted items here. So I am really happy with all of these yarns, and it was so nice to experiment and play around with them. But as you can probably imagine, they are too many for me to knit up by myself. So some of these will go up into my Etsy shop as soon as I am ready. I am currently preparing and getting ready with some organizational stuff about that, and as soon as I'm ready I will let you know. And if you're interested in getting some natural dyed yarns without getting your hands dirty yourself, you can get them from me. So that was it for today's episode. Thank you so much for coming over. Thank you for subscribing, for commenting. It means so much to me, all your sweet words. I love to read your comments, and on YouTube I am sometimes a little bit slow at answering because I am not checking the comments so often, but when I read them they are warming my heart, and I am really happy to have you all in my life and to be able to produce these videos and share my creative spirit with you. So thanks for watching, and I hope you're having a great time knitting and crafting, and those of you who are spinning like crazy for the Tour de Fleece, go go go! I wish you good luck for the last episodes of the tour, and see you next time. Bye!